Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Revolution podcast. Today I have with me the amazing fellow Aussie, Natasha Black. She is a healer, a channel, and a spiritual guide. And today we're going to have a conversation about her journey from religion to spirituality and the near-death experience that woke her up to that. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to chat to a fellow Aussie.
It sure is. So talk to me about your childhood. Talk to me about growing up. What was that like for you? Where did you grow up in Australia? And
Yep.
yeah.
So I was in Sydney. So I lived in at the time, I think we're in Baulkham Hills. Anyway, yeah, so we're in Sydney and yeah, just grew up you know, great family. We used to go on lots of adventures. We used to go hiking, water skiing. My dad always liked to make sure that we were having all those experiences growing up. There were some things that he didn't get to experience growing up, so he wanted to give that to us. And so, yeah, we were really just always outdoors and learning, you know, life skills like that. And I was brought up a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yep.
So that's quite a strict sect of Christianity. And that came from my mother's parents, so that side of the family. And yeah, we just followed suit and used to go to church. They go to church on a Saturday. You know, there's lots of rules and ways that you are supposed to live. It's quite conservative. And so, yeah, grew up like that. And then, you know, at 7, had my near-death experience. So, yeah, I
Wow.
don't know if you wanted to ask me anything from there.
Yeah, that's wow, that's young. I didn't realize it was so early on. Yeah, my brother has converted to Seventh-day Adventist. His wife is Seventh-day Adventist, so I know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happened? What happened with your NDE?
Yeah, so I was at my cousin's place who was at Sydney as well, and they've got a big, bushy typical Aussie backyard. I am allergic to wattles and cut grass and things like that. I have to always bring a asthma puffer with me. And so, yeah, we were just playing in the backyard one afternoon, and I had a bit of a small attack and I was just trying to breathe through it, which is something that I used to try and do. If I could try and breathe through it, then I would before grabbing my puffer. And yeah, and then it kept getting worse. And I thought, you know, as kids, you don't really want to step away from playing and go and be
Mm.
responsible. So I didn't go and grab my puffer straight away. I didn't want to miss out. And so I got to a point where I went up the stairs, the back stairs to my cousin's place, like through the kitchen, just to go and find my puffer. And long story short, I didn't bring it that day. We were about, I'd say about an hour from home, I think it was. And yeah, couldn't find it. My cousins didn't have asthma, so but my auntie still tried to help find one. She's like, oh, maybe we do have some left over the house somewhere.
Mm.
I'm not sure. And so we're searching for a puffer, and then you know, in the background, mum and dad were having like a light conversation, like, okay, what's plan B? Like, what do we do here? And so, yeah, no puffer found. And then dad made the decision, mum and dad made the decision, we'll go to the hospital, which was about, I think about half an hour away. I have to get the details of that right. But anyway, it was a bit of a drive, and my uncle said, you can follow me in the car and, you know, I'll take you to the hospital. So we were on the way to the hospital. Dad was speeding. Quite I was very tired from trying to breathe. It was getting
Mm.
worse. And naturally, with asthma, you start to panic when, you know, you're having an attack. And especially if you know that you don't have the puffer, it's like panic just sets in a little bit more.
Mm.
And so I'm really trying to kind of, you know, extend my chest and just like do all I can to just kind of get air in and be more comfortable sitting in the car, like different kinds of positions, like trying to see what, you know, was going to work. My dad was trying to rub my back and talk to me and try and calm me. And nothing was working. It was getting worse. He was starting to speed. I remember how much he was
Mm,
speeding. I do remember like we were going very fast at that stage. And I was starting to say to him, I'm starting to feel really tired. And he's like, don't go to sleep, just stay awake, stay with me. He kept trying to talk to me just to make sure that I was staying awake. And it got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. By that point, I wasn't in pain. I was just like, I'm just sleepy. I just need to
mm,
put my head down for a minute. I'm just sleepy. And so he was like, stay awake. And he's yelling at me, stay awake. He's calling my name, yelling at me. And I was just like, I just can't. So I put my head down on the middle console in the car and I closed my eyes and I could hear him. He was yelling at the top of his lungs. But for me, it felt very distant, but I know
mm.
that he was yelling. And so then he said that, he saw my eyes roll back in my head and started foaming at the mouth. So he's like, okay, I need to execute another plan. We're still a little bit away from the hospital. So there was this correctional facility that was close to where he was. And so he pulled up out the front of this correctional facility, like right out front of the gate, the wire gates or the iron gates. And he got out of the car and he's like, help, help. Does anybody know CPR? And so they were all the inmates were, having their break and outside. And one guy said, I know CPR. So he was allowed to come out with permission and obviously supervision to come and perform CPR on me. In the meantime, the ambulance was called for me. And so he was performing CPR until the ambulance got there. And the ambulance got there, and then, it was defib on the way to the hospital. And yeah, they were trying to revive me for quite a while. And uh they what happened then?
What an experience.
I know.
And like I just love the like how, that dad energy kicks in and it's just
Yeah,
like, nah, no one's
I
messing with
know.
me right now. Like I'm on a mission and I'm gonna get this done no matter what. And it's
Totally.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
there's something about men that they have this protective instinct, and
Mm,
it's like they can remove the emotions so well.
mm,
And I even
mm,
see it in my husband, when certain things are happening, they're just straight into solutions
mm,
mode. Emotions just off to the side for
mm.
now, whereas us women, we're like, oh, we're worried and like things take over like that,
Yeah.
and of course you need both, but they're so good at
Mm,
removing the emotion to get the job done.
mm.
And
And
so yeah, the doctor comes out of the emergency room to talk to my dad and said, we've been trying for a bit, it's not looking great. And so in the meantime, so obviously I didn't remember anything after I put my head down to sleep in the car. That was the last memory I had there. But then I saw myself in the backyard of my cousin's place, and there was a tunnel. So down their backyard to the actual really bushy part
mm,
was a path lined for me. And down each side of the path were these monsters or demons, trying to grab me as I was
mm,
walking down the path. And I was only like just, able to kind of get past them, and, they were just trying to grab me as I was walking through. But as I kept walking and getting away from them, they were getting further away. So the path was widening.
yep.
And then by that stage, I could see like there was a light at the end of the tunnel, which was soft. And then as I was walking, it was getting
Mm,
brighter and brighter. And then I walked through that white light and enter this space of just pure, I'm sure you've heard before, pure unconditional love. Like it is the way that,
mm,
the only way that I can really describe that. It's like everything and nothing exists in this
Mm,
space.
mm,
And so that was that part of it. But at the same time, I remember floating above my body in the room when they were
mm,
working on my body.
mm.
And I could see all the hospital staff. I could feel the chaos and the panic as they were, the professional panic,
Yes.
chaos that they were trying to communicate and codes, and there was
Mm,
just beeps and all of this going on. It was literally like you're watching a movie where you're so
mm.
engrossed in what's happening.
Yeah.
And I could feel their emotions. I could see everything that was going on. And I knew that was me on the table, but on the bed, but I wasn't attached to who that was.
Mm,
And I knew that I was dead, but I also wasn't attached to the fact that I was dead.
yeah.
It's like it literally is like an avatar. Like looking
Yeah.
down on this avatar, and it's like, oh yeah, well, this is just happening. This is just a scene unfolding, and yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I wasn't even thinking of my dad or my family or anything.
And
You're
and
very
this is
attached. Yeah.
and this is the thing, right? Like, um, God, there's so much I want to ask you and talk about. But yeah, the point, we are so attached to our human experience. And I do believe that we are here to have our human experience
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Like, I believe that we're spiritual beings here to master what it is to be human.
Yeah.
It's like a video game. We come in, we play, we up level, and then we check out, we game over, we play a new video game. Our soul doesn't care if we're hurt or enjoy or any of those things. Our soul is neutral, and it's just having an experience like when we play a video game.
It's
And yeah, and so like I just want to point that out to people because I think sometimes we can get so kind of caught up with our blinders on as to this human experience that we forget to zoom out and remember that there's a bigger game at play here. Like,
yeah.
there's more to this life than just like the hurts and the pains and the that we get so focused on.
Yeah.
um
Totally.
Not to discount any of that at all, because it is still so real and it is part of our experience. And just to know that, like, our soul wanted to come and experience the dark and the light and the hot and the cold and the blame and the shame and the guilt and the love and the all of it, because where we come from is
Yeah.
nothing. There's nothing there. There's nothing there to, it's just all white, or there's no even gray to say that that's white. you
Yeah.
know um,
Exactly.
yeah. I love it. So, oh my God, so many things. Did you ever find out who the inmate was? How
No,
did
and
you?
oh man, because I didn't really even start telling this story properly until about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've had to go back and try and recall things. But over the years, even though I didn't tell the story, there's been so many times that I've thought, I would love to find the doctor.
Mm,
I would love to find the staff and thank them. I'd love to find the inmate and
mm,
like say thank you, even if he
yeah.
still is in prison. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's just, such a gift that people just help along the way.
Mm.
So yeah, it's something that I would love to do, but it's sometimes
It,
I don't know. I don't
it,
know. Yeah.
it's hard, and especially when so much time's passed. Like, even just trying to get medical records from five,
Yeah.
10 years ago can be difficult, let alone
Yeah.
um, back then. But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
what an amazing story. Um, so just before we go on,
Mm.
the monsters that were on the path as you were walking towards this light, what do you think they represent? What do they represent to you? What's the
I don't know, but there's a feeling that I get constantly about, you know, with the faith that I was brought up in, there is no afterlife.
mm,
And if you haven't done enough, then you're going to hell. and that was something that I always felt, even at 7, I remember feeling like, have I done enough to win God's love? Am I going to make it through the pearly gates? And that's so huge, like
Mm,
for such a small child to be, and I
totally.
don't blame anyone for this. It's like no
No.
one knows what they don't know. And I am grateful for the spiritual connection, that there
Yes.
is something bigger. And I had to grow to love that, because I did go
Mm,
through my period of really hating the church and everyone religious. Not
yeah.
hating, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Had
yeah,
had
yeah.
things about it. But yeah, I have to wonder if that was my mind,
Mm,
kind of uh putting this projection of what I thought was happening.
mm,
I don't know. I don't know, and that's something that I may uncover
yeah.
in years to come. But I've heard lots of other NDEs, and people have different experiences about who they encounter on the other side. And yeah, I just have to wonder if that's how my fears were projected
Yeah.
as I was coming into the light. But then
Mm,
once I went into the light, like none of that existed. It was like, no,
mm,
that was just gone. And
mm,
this was the reason that kind of caused my big spiritual awakening. There was the
mm,
catalyst for asking so many questions about my religion as a child. This doesn't make sense. Oh, if this is what it says in the Bible and this is how God is, then why do we do this, or why is it like that? So I came in with some pretty profound questions that couldn't really be answered.
yep.
And because I was obviously 7, trying to process all of this information and put it all together, it was quite tricky.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, it was definitely the catalyst for me just going on this deep journey of seeking. But yeah, as I was in the floating above the body, I also went into the hallway where the doctor spoke to my dad, and I knew the whole conversation. And after I uh came back and was sitting in the hospital bed, I recalled that whole conversation to my dad, and he was like, how do you know that?
mm,
Like, and he is a major skeptic. He's like, there's no way that you could know that. Like, you weren't there. Like, how could you know that? And so, yeah, he's just like, even still, I wouldn't say a full skeptic, but he's like, yeah, there's some things I can't explain. I don't know what it is, but I can't explain it.
mm,
But yeah, once I was in the light, it was like, I call it like a collective voice, uh, uh, telling me, because once I was there, I was saying, oh my God, like, I don't want to leave here. There's like, this is home. This is home. This feels familiar. It feels
mm,
amazing. I'm not leaving. Like, this is it. And this collective group of voices, it was like one voice, but it was a collective. And they were saying, no, you have to
mm,
go back. And I was like, no, I'm not going back to, like, are you crazy? I'm not going back to that. And they were saying, no, you have so much to do here on this
mm,
earth. You have a big mission to complete. And you can't stay here.
mm,
And even though that was said to me, I still felt strongly that I had a choice. If I really pushed back, I could have chosen to stay if I wanted to. But because I heard you've got so much to do here, it was kind of like a switch. It was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, if I've got a big purpose, then I'm happy to do that. But,
yep.
I would obviously you're going to choose the bliss over the pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I heard that, it was like, okay, encouragement for me to come back and
Mm.
complete what I had signed up here to do.
Mm. And this is the thing, right? Like, so often, like, what I was saying before, like we get caught up with the human experience, we get
Mhm.
caught up with the pain. But I wholeheartedly believe that every moment of contrast, every challenge that we have in life, that is for our expansion. Like, we are in a video game, and what do you want to do in a video game? You want to level up, you want to get to the next level, you want to keep challenging yourself, like you want to, you know, get the new tools, you want to do all of those things. And so that is life, you know. Like, I feel so often that people want to get rid of their challenges, to get rid of the obstacles, to not have the hard experiences, when without them, without that experience, like probably one of the hardest experiences of your life, like you died.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't have had that profound awakening. And you know, people can say, well, oh, but if you know, just ease off a little bit. Well, you need the slap in the face, you need to get knocked out sometimes to hear it, because you know, sometimes our programming on the other side is so strong that it's like, you're not going to hear the lesson, you're not going to hear what's here for you if you don't get kind of KO'd, knocked out. Like,
And when you're in, before you come into this life, you're in this space where you know that your soul's completed this level of learning. And so all of your previous lifetimes is like, okay, like this is what I've learned so far. I know where I sit. I know what I need to learn next. And you are literally looking down at, you know, that movie Inside Out, and they've got the baubles of memories. It's like that, but with lifetimes. And so you're there and you're looking, okay, this bauble has this family, these experiences. You're not attached to any of the emotions of that either, or the trauma of it. You're like, okay, this is the experience. This is what that package looks like. Yeah, that could get me there, but probably not as good as the one here, you know. And you're choosing like which experience is going to bring me the next part of my soul's growth. And so you choose like this is the one I choose to come down. Obviously, you're not going to feel the traumas of the things that you're going to experience, otherwise you probably wouldn't choose it, you know. But in that space, it's just experience, like you said. It's not good or bad. It is literally just an experience. And then obviously when we come down here, we feel all the traumas, the stresses, the heavy emotion, the depression, the anxiety, all of those things with regards to your experience. But every single thing in your life is here to up-level you. And you have a choice to be a victim or a victor of it. And I'm not discounting anything that people go through, but I am saying that you have a choice to move through it and grow, or you can stay, you know, where you are, and there's no judgment around that. It's just, what do you choose? You know, which is the hardest way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, while it can be hard to face our stuff, while it can be hard to, you know, dive deep and do the healing work, it's harder to stay there. It's harder to stay stuck, you know. It's really harder to stay stuck. And yeah, so if I can just encourage people to have the bravery, to have the courage to dive deep into these parts of you that you've not yet explored, and to love yourself there, you will transform it. You will transform it. And yeah, to me, the only way is the only way to the light is to go through the dark. And
and we don't know what the light looks like until we go through that darkness. So you're not going to understand what the light looks like until you're going through the depth of your sorrow and your traumas. And yes, it's hard to face. I've literally sat in healing sessions ready to unleash what it was to be healed. And I was like, and this has happened a couple of times. Oh my God, I don't want to be, no, I could just walk out. No, no. And I'm like, no, I'm a double Capricorn. I'm like, I'm here to get the shit done. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
I'm here to get it done, so I'm doing it. Like I'm not turning away. And there's on this spiritual self-development growth journey, you have to have the courage to face what you don't want to face, but it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Once you know that you can move through that, you know more of who you are and what you're made of and what you can get through. And then it becomes easier. Then you're like, okay, yeah, it's hard. I'm kind of going through the mud again, but it's a little bit easier this time. And the more you do that, the more light you can see, the more things become easier for you. And even your level of perception changes about the world around you because you're working through it. Which is something that I know we touched on before we started recording, but the spiritual community and even the religious community, it's not just about seeking the light. It's about like really, you have to meet yourself at your darkest point. And you have to know what the dark looks like to overcome it. How can you transcend it when you don't know what it looks like? This is the whole thing. It's like, yeah, ascension, transcendence, whatever you want to call it. It's really just alchemy. If you're alchemizing that, then you're on your way to self-mastery. You can alchemize anything, and I'm not saying that you aren't presented with more challenges as life goes on, but you understand, like, okay, I'm going through a bit of a time here. So like, yeah, just dig the heels in and roll up the sleeves, and it's just time to work for a few months. And just get good support and for people to find stories that are the same as yours. Because if you can't see the light yourself, you need to listen to someone that's gone through the same thing so that you can get that courage and that hope. You want to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it's hard to see that until you're through it.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, absolutely everything. Yes to everything you've just said. You're double Capricorn. I'm quadruple Capricorn.
Oh,
We've just had, when you said that, I was like, oh shit.
that's fine.
and then you ask if you can swear. I'm like, oh, please, sister.
That's funny.
If you can swear, I'm like, oh. So
yeah, funny.
For anyone who doesn't know, Pluto has been in Capricorn for the last roughly 17 years. And so anyone that has a decent amount of Capricorn in their chart has been going through the deepest transformation that you could possibly experience in this lifetime. And so if you want to be healed, find a Capricorn because we have been through it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if we come across blunt at times or that we don't care. It's not that. Though I know that I've had to learn how to be softer in my communication, but I love everyone so much that I want to give them the truth so that they can grow because I see greatness in them. Sometimes it comes out not how I mean it to, but it's like if I'm giving myself the hard truth, I want to give you the hard truth too, so that you can grow through it. But then my journey has been to go, well, they might not choose that. So like,
I just lost you for a second.
That's all right.
Okay, the last thing you said was may choose not to go through that.
Choose not to go through that. Don't remember. Anyway.
It's all good. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. Like I said, very Capricorn myself. And, we tend to have hearts of gold and a very strong delivery.
Yeah. And Like we just see greatness in
Mm,
people and see a lot of the way that Capricorns are presented in, the funny memes and everything. It's like we're cold and we're
mm,
heartless.
mm.
It's like we have the biggest hearts. It's just that we're here also to get a job done.
Yep,
So if and efficiently. So if
yep.
we see that that's direct communication, that's the most efficient way of getting that job done because they see what's best for you. Anyway, that's my experience. So
No, absolutely. I agree. It's like anyone that comes to me, I can already see their potential. I can already see like the outcome. And so like my frustration is with, some of the people out there in the spiritual community that are, this whole love and light stuff, and pretending to be nice and, just be kind and all this sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, great. But what it is, it's fake light. And
mm,
if you want to get to the true light where you really are love and light, you've
mm.
got to go through the dark. You've
Yep.
got to go through the dark. You've got to transform yourself. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have this nice facade and this, not nice, backstage kind of way of being. And that will come out at some point.
Yep.
You can't fake love. You can't fake, the truth of who you are. This is the
Mhm.
shadow. It's going to come out. Your mask is going to slip and people are going to see that part of you. And, we see this in society with like the fall of the guru and,
Yep.
Oprah seems to be associated with a lot of them, but like there's
I
a lot
know.
of a lot of our gurus have fallen because they haven't addressed that part of themselves. And look, I'm not saying that there's actually anything wrong with that part of you. That's the point. It's about loving that part of you so that it doesn't come out in explosive anger, rage, whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah, it
Um,
really is about how can I love that part of me as well as the lighter part of me,
yes.
because where shame
Mm,
is such a low vibration energy. So if we're constantly going into shame, you cannot affirm yourself to ascension. Uh, one of the biggest things is like, yeah, okay, let's get rid of the shame, or work through the shame. How can you love yourself in your darkest
yep.
points, or your most unlovable traits? Like, how
Mm,
does that look for you? That's a challenge to
mm,
look at yourself in that shame or that judgment and go, okay, yep, that's not a fine moment of mine, but how can I just love myself through learning how to
mm,
be better at this or
mm,
seeing it in a different way? But something I wanted to talk about just quickly, where you were talking about the light. A lot of what I talk about with ascension or, transcendence or evolution is going through the heart.
mm,
Everything that I talk about is, I actually call the ascension is within you.
mm-hmm,
So we're not ascending to a higher realm, but actually the higher realm is within you.
mm-hmm,
So if we are meeting ourselves with judgment and criticism and shame and unforgiveness and hate towards others and all of this stuff, you're already blocked. You can do all the affirmations and all the meditation, but if that heart is not being released and opened and you're not breaking down those walls around your heart, then there's blockages there that's going to stop your evolution from happening. And everything else that goes around that is bypassing, which, I don't think a lot of people understand yet.
mm,
And there's no judgment to that either. It's just
mm.
like we're at where we're at, and we're just learning how to go from one, side of the pendulum to the other and bring it back in the middle.
Exactly. And I think that's the key is finding the balance.
Yeah.
And you don't get rid of your shame, you don't get rid of your anger, you don't get rid of any of these things that you don't like about yourself. Before we jumped on, we were talking about the need to be right. And it's not about getting rid of that need to be right. It's about no. I'm going to love that part of me. And sometimes I'm going to assert that I am right
Yeah.
because, you know, everything serves us, even the shame and the guilt and the dark stuff. It's serving you. It's helping you to find the other parts. It's helping you to catalyze yourself into this heart-centered, greater version of you. I say that the path of the shadow is the path of the heart warrior.
Yeah.
You know, and so absolutely, it's you're never going to get rid of anything that you don't like about you.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. You have all aspects of the universe within you. This is a holographic universe. We
Yeah.
contain the entire hologram within us. And so love it.
Yeah.
Learn to love
And
it.
we're just points of information.
Mm-hmm.
So my point of information and your point of information and everyone around you, we're literally all points of information feeding into this
Yep.
field of information,
Yep.
and we're pulling from that. So your perception of something will be completely different, but it's all relevant because we're figuring it out together. What's
Mm,
real, what's
mm,
true, what's not. So
mm.
it's not necessarily that anyone's right or wrong. It's just like this is just a different point of information that
Yeah.
we're putting back into the field to know, um, and learn what we need to learn to know ourselves ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And, you know, as you do this work, like you said before, like your perceptions will change. You know, how you see the world will change as you own the parts of you. The things that happen in life don't bother you so much. And there gets to be a tipping point where it's just like, I
Yeah.
can see what's happening here. It's cool. I can see what's happening. Not to say that you won't have challenge, you won't have frustration, you won't be upset at times. It will just shorten your refractory period, and you'll have a moment of like, fuck this,
Yeah.
to then
Yep.
right to expand then into the newer version of you. And
Totally. And even I just want to touch on something. It's maybe something that could be controversial at this point of our evolution, but even seeing people that are doing nasty and horrible things in this world,
mm-hmm,
they have a path on
mm-hmm,
this divine awakening that many
100%.
cannot see yet. And it's like, oh, yes, I'm not condoning that for sure. That's wrong. That's not what we want to do moving forward. But there's a part of me that's also grateful for them stepping up and taking that role for almost the whole of humanity to hate for
Yep,
the sake of us awakening to truth. And this is where the bigger picture comes in. So, yeah, we're
exactly.
constantly zooming in and out.
Yep,
Like we're here, then we zoom out. What's
yep,
the biggest perspective of this? Then we're zooming in and like working on our own little alchemization of our own experiences. Then it goes to the world. So we're constantly going up and down and figuring out. But yeah, it's we all have a part of this. It's not
mm,
just one or two of us or all the light workers or whoever.
no,
It's like we all have a part in this, and in that space, there is no separation of anybody.
yep,
We all have a place in this. So yeah, I know that can be triggering for some because there's a lot of heat about lots of different topics going on in the world at the moment. But like I always say, how do we know what the awakening is supposed to look like?
totally.
I don't.
Yep.
What's going to happen tomorrow? I'm just trusting that that's okay. Well, that's where we're at. We obviously need to grow through this experience. And yeah, it's not nice. It's not fun, but also it's like, well, we need to learn something from this.
And yeah, absolutely yes to all of that as well. It's you know, certainly some years ago I was very frustrated with what was happening with COVID.
Mm.
Um, and really, to your point, if you can look at some of these people the Bill Gates, the,
Yep.
the list goes on. They are serving as catalysts for our
Yep.
awakening. The
Yep.
more control that is put upon us by governments and, oligarchs, the more you are going to expand into a greater level of yourself.
Yep.
So no matter what's happening at any given time, now that's not to say don't take action, don't do
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
don't, sign a petition or take a stand. I'm not saying any of that just to sit and meditate and wish for something to change. You do what's inspiring for you.
Definitely.
And also know that no matter what happens, there's always two sides to something. There's always a solution to any problem.
Yeah.
And we know that when something is restricted so much, it will expand out into a greater version. And
Yep.
so
And that's what
that's
we're doing here is we're creating new earth. New
yeah.
earth isn't a place that we're going to. I talk about new earth.
Mm,
New earth is the new earth that we're creating
mm,
here.
mm,
So taking actions on those things is important because
mm,
what do we want to create moving forward?
yeah.
No, we don't want the heavy corruption and the control and all of that. So we take action to create something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all have a part of this awakening for us. And
Mm,
like, we are birthing. I've birthed my own children. It's very painful. And you want to kind of turn back at the point where it's like just about to break through. And I believe that that's where we're at now. It's like the
yes.
crowning of the head. And
Yes.
where it's like, oh, I wish my husband never touched me. It's
Yeah.
like you go through that moment of like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is so
Mm,
painful.
mm,
And so we're here now. It's like
mm.
this is the make or break. But yeah, we're creating something new together. And so definitely what you said, like take action on what inspires you to
Yes.
create for this new evolution, this new earth.
Yeah. And know that, like I love the fact that you're talking about the new earth being here and now, because there is nowhere to go. People
No.
talk about ascending to the fifth dimension and all this sort of thing. No, we're here and now in this 3D reality. There's nowhere else to go. Like, we're here to be human. We're here to have this experience and to birth the new version here. Now, if you're not doing the work to transform yourself, to change your perspectives, to change your perceptions, to love yourself more,
Mm.
then you will be on a different timeline. Your reality will still show up in a different way. You can
Yep.
see it with what's happening with the election at the moment, with the US election. The people that supported Trump have moved through that birthing stage. The baby's out, like it's coming, like
Yep. Yep.
it's like, yes, like final push, and we're
Yes.
we're here. And then the people that didn't support Trump, they're still in the contractions, they're still in the pain, in
Mhm.
the contrast. And so you get to choose, you get to choose how you want your reality to play out. And
Yep.
that goes for anything. That's
Yep.
not just the election. That's not just the idea of this new earth. It's about any moment, like you were saying before, you get to be the victim or the victor.
Mhm.
So you can change your entire reality in a moment.
Yep. Totally. And when you were talking about the fifth dimension before, they're just dimensions within us.
Yeah.
They're a dimension of consciousness that you go to within yourself and your
Mm,
awareness and understanding, which helps us create the new earth, and new solutions that are all of the highest timeline and the highest vibration of love and unity and
mm.
passion and all of that. So it is a vibration, but yeah, I think that's misunderstood a lot. It's just like there's a lot of things that are misunderstood in the religious community. It's all we were talking about this before, but it's the interpretation
Yes.
of
And
how things. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I think people think that when they hear that we're birthing a new earth, we're going through the ascension, we're doing all these things, they think that everyone's just going to get taken along for the ride and they don't actually have to do anything.
Yeah.
But your external reality is a reflection of your internal one. So it doesn't matter whether you believe in the fifth dimension as a consciousness, as a place to be, as a whatever. It doesn't matter what you believe really in terms of any of that stuff. If you're not loving yourself more, if you're not owning these disowned parts of you, if you're not changing the way you see the world is not going to change for you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so bypassing is not the way.
Yeah, a lot of what I talk about and a lot of what I discovered on my journey is really going into the depths of
mm,
ancient wisdom and,
mm,
something that really has opened my eyes more and more and more is so reading the Emerald Tablets.
mm.
Um, the essence of it is know thyself.
Yep.
And if you know who you are, this is a big part of my work, whether it's healing, mentoring, whatever, events, is how can I get you to know yourself
Yep.
so that you can be in the chaos and
Mm.
be still grounded and here and,
Yep.
but it's also about knowing what we are capable of as human beings.
Yes.
And, I'm not special because I channel. Everyone can channel.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can be a psychic. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
can be a healer if you choose.
Mm-hmm.
We all have the capabilities of that. And this is
Yes.
a lot of what I talk about is like part of knowing yourself is knowing what can this physical structure do
Yes.
for you? How is your soul expressing itself
Yeah.
through the human body? What are we capable of? We
Mm.
know that we're capable of self-healing through the
Yeah.
power of the mind.
Yeah.
And that's been known through what do they call it? I can't remember the term. Placebo.
Mm.
So it's like been known for a while, but now people are starting to delve deeper into, okay, what does it look like to
Yeah.
heal through the power of the mind? And that's, it's just so important for us to know what we're capable of. And I think before we try and leave the body and ascend and do all this, like I'm one of the most esoteric people that, I know, and I love all the weird stuff, but
Yep.
there's a place for that. And
Yep.
there's a place for knowing how can I be a bridge between heaven and earth? And it's like, how can I bring it together? And this is a lot of what I've discovered on my journey was what Jesus was trying to teach.
Yes.
Like how to be that bridge, how to bring heaven, how to bring earth and like in
Yep.
this physical structure, because that's why we're here. So, oh my
Absolutely.
God, I could talk for so long about that. So sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, not at all. But it's true, right? It's understanding that we're spiritual beings having this human
Yep.
experience and walking with a foot in each world sometimes, and to absolutely to bridge that gap. Um, yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So much to talk about, but
I know,
the,
I
the
know.
people, I just want people to know who they are. And if you don't listen to anything else, understand what humans
Yes.
can do.
Yes.
Go on a path of exploring what we're capable of,
Mm,
and you'll start unfolding what you can do. You don't have to stay in your depression box or your anxiety box.
yep.
And I'm not discounting those experiences, but
Of course.
that is not who you are.
No.
So it's like just moving through these things that society have told us that we have to be in that box. It's limiting you.
Yeah.
It's limiting you so
Yep.
much. And, in so many ways there's limits placed on us. I just want people to know that there's no one special more than you. There's no guru that knows more than you. You can access every piece of information that
Yes.
anyone that you look up to can access. It's just find the way to do that, and then you'll start becoming free and to know thyself even more.
Exactly. And that's a really, really key point that I really want to drive home again and just reiterate. No one is more special than you. Like, no one has something that you don't have. If you spot something within someone, it must be within you. You just haven't owned it.
Yeah.
And so everyone has this incredible God energy that can create whatever it is that you want in life. And so own it, love it, find it, learn about it. You
Yeah.
can transform your world, and it can transform really quickly. Just like something happens and turns something into a tragedy for you, you can turn that into a miracle as well, just as quickly.
Yeah. And
Um,
through those experiences, we heal each other.
yes.
So, like, through what I've worked through, whether it's public or not, there's someone that I can go, I actually went through that as well. And this is how I did it. May not be your path, but this is, you can get through it. This is when people are inspired to be healers or to
Mm,
help in aged care or wherever it is.
yeah.
It's like we're all healing all the time. It's just
Yeah.
how can you help the next person and create that ripple effect?
And the ripple effect is key because we're all entangled, and so the entanglement, like literally us having this conversation, we're entangled.
Yeah.
Whatever I do is going to impact you now, like, so
Yeah.
the flow on effect to the collective is huge.
Huge. And we
Huge.
see that in both,
Mm,
both sides of the coin. It's like we see what happens when we're rippling negativity and hate and, division, which is why we've got to be so careful, even if you have certain views on something. It's like, okay, still keep the mindset of unity because there's so many little traps that people don't see where we're like, oh, okay, this is a division tactic. No, I can still allow that person to have their perception and their opinions, but I still love them. It's like they're entitled to that just as I am. So it's watching out for these little, I call them like matrix tricks. But everything we're doing is trying to bring us back into the divine matrix and get out of the fabricated one.
yeah, and I think too it's key for people to understand that there's a law of polarity. So the more you try and be one-sided rather than balanced, the more you're going to bring in the other side. So if you're trying to be positive all the time, you're going to attract negativity,
Yeah.
to bring you back into balance. So, you know, focus on balancing yourself, focus on balancing your perspectives, your
Mm,
perceptions, focus on love rather than, um, positivity or negativity. If you can get yourself into your heart and open your heart,
yeah,
that's where the balance is. That's where the gratitude is, and that's going to change the world for sure.
totally. And that came through for me in a healing that I did once. Mary Magdalene came through and she told me all about that. It was like
Mm,
ascension through the heart. And that was
mm,
a lot of what her and Jesus was trying to teach to people is like, how can we live through the heart?
mm.
Um, if and I talk about looking through the eyes of the heart, how can you look at every situation through the eyes of the heart? If you constantly come back to that, you can't really go wrong.
Mm.
Um,
And
things,
not crucify yourself if you don't
oh
either,
man,
you
totally.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just, well, you don't need to because it's like, okay, let's just say you made a mistake or, whatever. It's like, well, it's done. So love it. Go, yep, okay, that wasn't great, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it because it's done.
Mm,
How do I choose differently next time?
mm.
There's so many ways in which we've been programmed to shame ourselves. And this is just, yeah, just keeping us in that lower vibration. And that includes being in the spiritual community. There's so many
Mm,
pieces of dogma and
mm,
things that people have to just open the box a little bit and see where the dogmas lie, where the boxes are. Think beyond that. We're thinking bigger now. Like
exactly.
we've learned from these experiences.
Mm,
Now we're dreaming and thinking bigger. We've got to expand our own universes now and see, like, how big does it go? How big can it look?
Exactly. Which leads me to my final question. What does spiritual revolution mean to you? What is a spiritual revolution to you?
Oh, give me a second. I'm going to really think about this. Something that's coming to my mind is that it's really just coming home to remember who you are, remembering who you are. Everyone is spiritual.
Mm,
It's not just the people that are into, crystals and ayahuasca.
yeah.
It's or talk about love and light or even religion for that matter. It's like all of these aspects of religion and spirituality are leading to the same point,
Mm,
and that's love.
mm,
So when we all go home to that love and light place
mm,
that I went to when I died, it's like we all go back to that
mm,
space, and that's home. We're all spiritual. There is nothing anyone can do to make them not spiritual. It's just whether or not you remember.
yes.
So, all of my work is about how can I help you remember that you are spiritual and not to look up to gurus. This is just so major for me. I've had so many profound experiences to show me not to
Yeah.
look up to the guru, and there's no one here to save us. It's like you save yourself. And
100%.
that whether that's the government, whether it's the aliens, whether it's Jesus, whether it's whoever, it's like you are the only one that can save yourself. So yeah, I think the revolution is just about us just knowing truly who we
Mm,
are in our essence.
mm. Know thyself, be thyself, love
Yeah,
thyself. Yeah.
yeah,
Beautiful. Love
yeah.
it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you, and yeah, so stoked that you get it. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
It's been awesome to have this conversation. I'm sure we could go on for 3 hours if we wanted to. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's been awesome. Um, to the audience, just thanks for being here. Thanks for
yeah.
showing up for you.
Mm,
And just don't always remember when you're looking up, and this revolution is about, that Jill's providing is about helping you remember that. So just
mm,
never forget that you are just as special as the next person,
yep.
and that's that.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll pop the links so that people can contact you below. And yeah, thanks again for being on.